O God, who is the name of what we thirst for, and whose Spirit is the source without which life lies in danger of being reclaimed by the despairing possibility that nothing matters, teach us, in the choices we make each day, to be faithful to that source of life, that we may provide the conditions which bring forth the fruits of your Spirit. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. I thought I'd begin by just hearing from you all. You chose this over other opportunities, and my hunch is you're coming into this room with some expectations. What are you hoping for? What do you want to get out of this hour and 15 minutes together? I'm going to see what those things are. I'm not promising that we'll get all of them, but we'll see what we can do. So, fire when ready. Anybody? Yes?
I am a new people warden. Junior warden. And I would like to know exactly what my duty is supposed to be.
Okay.
And how do I engage my congregation?
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, Bonnie.
I am not a word, but I would like to know how much time is involved through the yearly process of the priest being evaluated and the vestry knowing about it.
Priest evaluation, is that that'll help us to...
As part of, mentoring as part of that.
Okay, what else?
I'd like to hear ideas for making mutual ministry review truly a year-round conversation.
Okay. What else? Pete?
I've been the bishop's warden for 18 months now, and I think I'm doing okay. But I don't have an assurance that since I've never served in that capacity before, I don't know if I'm doing the right things or if I'm simply just winging it. So I guess it's in terms of how to distill that into a one sentence thing. I guess it's learning how to respond to my congregation.
Okay. So, okay. 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 Others? Tom?
I'm a new bishop's warden.
Right.
Although I've been involved in the ministry of the bishop's meeting for several years, I've seen various wardens at our church interact differently
Okay.
with the bishop and with the diocese. And I'm just wondering what the expectations are.
Okay. Okay. Jim?
I'm a senior warden in the church that's about to call a new rector, and I'm interested to get some insights into the leadership, sharing the leadership roles.
Question back at you. In general, sharing leadership roles with rector/vicar, or in transition, or both?
Well, and most particularly in transition.
Okay. My hunch is that some of you in the room may be wondering about that just in general.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. You know, when I was a math teacher, I could get down to this last level really easily, but that's a skill that atrophies. Just yeah. Okay. May get to that, yeah. But now my pride is involved. Okay, so Helen, did you have something?
Yes, I was selected senior warden by our pastoral leader.
Right.
And now we have a
Priest in charge.
priest in charge. And he wanted everyone to stay in their positions at least for a year.
Right.
And I'm just wondering if I should sit down with him and ask what his expectations are, or if I should just sort of continue on
Let me
major organization, or...
Let me follow that by title a little bit with this part here, okay? Because I think that is a transitional issue, and so yours with some particularity to it. Judy?
I'm a senior warden here at St. Mark's, and we are in transition. I will also add to the sharing leadership with the rector in transition, and also the relationship with the staff.
Okay. And I'm going to do this. I think that's a general thing, but it has some specificity around transitions. Anything else? Yes?
I'm not sure if this is agreeable, but it's goals and objectives. The goals and objectives, one is obviously intangible, the other is tangible, one is measure and the objective. Can those change with the community? Just stay stationary with the mission of the church, or can the priest change those goals and objectives? I mean, does it continue to change as our church changes?
Mm-hmm.
Or the community changes?
I'm going to just leave goals and objectives, and when we get to that, if we haven't gotten to that, you just own that, sort of specifics around that. Terry?
Yes, new junior warden, and my duties for the ministry going just like here, do you have any other important duties that you...
Junior warden, senior warden, kind of bifurcating. Okay. Fair enough. Shall we go ahead and get going? And this list can be added to as we go. I mean, if somebody has a earth-shaking thought, I'm all ears. I think your peers are. And I want you all to feel like this is your workshop, okay? I've obviously done some stuff on PowerPoint here to kind of walk through. If I don't get through it today, that's okay. I'm going to, in fact, Pete, if you could save me from having to open up my briefcase and just rip off a couple pieces of paper from your tablet and start sending around, put your email on it. I'll send you all the PowerPoint presentation. You'll have it in your inbox sometime early next week. And so you don't have to worry about copying down anything I put up here. This is mainly just to kind of keep us all, what's he talking about, where are we? Because this is sort of a gangly beast, okay? And I want to begin by just some sort of thinking about what's out there about this business of being a warden, because it's not something that's easy to you may buy the vestry handbook and read that section on warden. Good if you have. It only gets you so far. And one of the things you're going to find is every congregation utilizes that particular role differently, and different clergy will do it. So if you're in a transition, sometimes those expectations can shift. So what I'm giving you may be some anchors and some high seas, if you will, but there's still some things you can hook onto. So what is a church warden? What do you all what do you hear? Those of you who are doing the job, what do you think? What is a church warden? And first of all, how many people here are wardens? Okay, vast majority. Those of you who aren't, watch out, you may be. Oh, they went to the class. Oh, yeah. But and it's a blessed job. What do you think? What do you hear? What's out there? CEO of the church. Others? Support of the clergy. Leader of the vestry. Junior wardens hear what? What did you? Huh? What? Janitor. Yeah. There's this historic association with property responsibilities, which you won't find. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay. What it is not. If you're familiar with Shawshank Redemption, anybody seen that movie? This is not your job. Okay, you're not like this guy here. If you've seen the film, this is like you say, boo, hiss. This is the bad guy. This is what culture thinks about when you say, I'm a warden. Really? And they start backing up. And that means that church is not the place where orange is the new black. Okay? We're not making any fashion statements here. So where do we go? How do we figure out what this thing is, church wardens? Well, I'm a pretty simple-minded person, so I go to the dictionary. And the dictionary says this about what wardens are. First thing it says is a person who has a charge, or, forgive my typo here, care of some things, especially a building or someone. Or I would even add probably some people. Then it gets a little bit more specific. Any of various public officials, especially one responsible for enforcement of certain regulations. That's where the church, the prison warden comes. A person employed. I love this one. This one actually kind of, somebody employed a safari park. A safari park is an image for church congregation. All right, so maybe you can think about that. And then, again, the prison warden, specifically defined. This is a little bit of where the Anglican tradition gets church warden, is through a principal president of a university or college. Now, the sixth definition is, of course, church warden. And so I dug a little deeper, and what the dictionary says about church warden is, first gives it in the Anglican context, a lay officer who looks after the secular affairs of the church and who is, in England, the legal representative of the parish. That's an important distinction. You are a legal representative of a parish, not the legal representative. Others can be empowered to do so. And then in the Episcopal Church, it removes that lay officer who, with other members of the vestry, is in charge of the temporal management of the parish. We're going to go through the canons a little bit deliberately and belabor this a little bit, because that really is a source of your authority. And it's really important to know the source of your authority, especially if things get a little off the rails. Because that's when people will say, well, what right do you have to do X, Y, or Z? So, a distinction here, you're not the legal representative. You are a member of the vestry, a distinguished officer of the vestry, distinguished from others. And with the vestry, shared responsibility, not singular responsibility, the temporal management of the parish. And then I just thought this was interesting as a third one. I didn't know that. Who knew that? So that you can say you learned at the bishop's workshop. Okay, all right. Now, what is this business of leadership in the church like? And you'll have to help me a little bit with my technical skills here. It's a little bit like this, herding cats. Okay? Now, some of you may have, several years ago, seen a video that was a Super Bowl commercial about herding cats. And because it's after lunch, I have a little something special for you. So please indulge me as I leave my PowerPoint just momentarily. And with the wonders of the World Wide Web, give you this. He says with confidence. Oh, that's my problem. Because I previewed it. Here you go. You ready?
Man right here is my great-grandfather. He's the first cat herder in our family.
Now, if you do EDS and you put a D here, so I thought you all needed a little bit of laughter, and actually I would imagine that your laughter has to do with the fact that, it's so true, yeah. It is like herding cats. It's like that for the clergy you work with. It's like that for your fellow vestry members. And part of it is this thing called a congregation is a gangly thing. It's like that herd of cats. They're not inclined to all go the same direction. And we're the church and we love each other, but sometimes they have claws too. And it's just important to remember and to be able to talk about. That, I think, is one of the reasons why we don't have one warden, but two. And why we have multiple people serve on the vestry is I would encourage you all to work at building a leadership community. Because sometimes it can be really tough to lead. And sometimes you can get all chewed up like that cowboy that was talking about. Or is it really a cowboy if you're herding cats? Just a thought. And a little bit about the characteristic of congregations. You have multiple constituencies, right? Some of the pieces of that constituencies, you got these parishioners, all right? People just like you who are members of the parish. They choose to be members of that parish, and they come with a variety of expectations. And they're rightly willing to share those expectations and those unmet expectations with you. You have things like the altar guild. You have men's groups, women's groups, youth groups, etc., etc., etc. Choirs, name it. These become different constituencies and sometimes competing in and of themselves, but that's not it. You have a separate thing called clergy. If you're in a larger congregation, you may have multiple clergy. If you're in a more sort of normal-sized congregation, you probably have one. But that's a complicator in the constituency that you work with in and of itself. If you're, and I used to say, if you're in a congregation that's large enough to have staff, multiple staff, you have that constituency. I've come to learn that every congregation has staff of every size. They just may not be paid, okay? But they're people that are stakeholders to such an extent that they function as if that is a vocational part of their life. And to some extent, that constituency is, what's a polite way of saying this, more invested and energetic in their attitudes than even those who are compensated financially. One constituency that you may miss is neighbors. James, I'm thinking about you. When we had the stuff with the steeple, I bet you thought about that constituency of your neighbors, where when the road got closed off because of the parish's work, you hear from the neighbors. That's another constituency. Other parts of the diocese. We live in an age where I can go to Google and get a Super Bowl ad. We live in an age where what happens in one Episcopal church affects another. Something challenging happens. There's clergy misconduct across the country, for goodness sakes, even. But certainly in your own backyard, it affects the church down the street. So other parts of the diocese are certainly your concern. The relationship with the bishop, which we'll talk about. One of you all had that as a question earlier, and the bishop staff. So you're always juggling these different folks that are asking questions, wanting to share their perspective with you, and influence the direction of the parish. It's worth just noting what kind of cats you have that you're herding. Now, oops, this is not going to come in terms of the phasing. I want to talk about the canons, what the canons say. There are three seminal documents that help you with your rules of the road. This is the first one, the canons of the Episcopal Church. What do you think the second one is? Anybody? Diocesan canons. And the third? Thank you, Peggy. Your bylaws. In that order. The Constitution of Canons of the Episcopal Church is the container. We have to make sure everything conforms to that. then the diocesan canons must conform to those. They can't contravene the national canons. And the same with your bylaws. Now, bylaws are an interesting, if you're in a mission, you probably don't have bylaws. You may have rules of order, or you may have created bylaws to govern how you manage yourself, but those have no legal force beyond the necessity to conform to the canons. How many of you all are from parishes as opposed to missions? Okay. I happen to know this, but every parish in our diocese is incorporated in the state of California, or in one case, the state of Arizona. A parish may be incorporated. It doesn't have to be. But if it avails itself of that corporate status, what then must you also be attentive to? Well, the corporate laws, religious corporation laws in the state. You also, by the way, just so you know, have to be obedient to all federal, state, and local laws. So as a vestry member in general, and as a warden in particular, you want to be aware of this. These two canons that we have, you might say, well, where can I access them? And again, in the day where you can get herding cats on the internet, these are available on the internet. They're as PDFs. The Episcopal Church canons, you don't have to write down this website. Just Google the Episcopal Church Constitution and Canons, and you'll go right to that. I love Google. Google's running the world now, I think. And the Episcopal Church canons are going to say certain things about wardens. The Episcopal Diocese of San Diego will say certain things about wardens. So do your several bylaws. And they may have some specifics about that you will want to go home, if you haven't already, and educate yourself about it. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them if I'm able to, or somebody else on my staff, or our chancellor if you would like a legal opinion on your bylaws. I'm going to let me stop here. Questions that any of that raises before I want to go, just show you a little bit of what both of our two sets of canons say about wardens' roles, and then go to some other things. Questions? Yes, Helen.
How do you know if something in your particular parish is a tradition or a bylaw or in the diocesan canon?
Well, you're going to know everything there is in the diocesan canons in about 10 minutes that says about wardens, and same with the Episcopal Church canons. You'll have to review your bylaws and see what it says. And the answer to your question is if you don't find it anyplace else, it's in the culture of the parish. Does that make sense? Yeah. By process of elimination. Which means that you are technically free to not follow that. However, parish traditions can be, really persnickety things. And to change something like that, you might want to ponder the rationale, the reason, and do a lot of education to do it. A quick story. When I was rector in Northfield, St. James in Northfield, we did a big building project, renovated the whole church and added on to it. And when we started looking at our sanctuary, we had this sarcophagus. It was like this conference table, altar, sarcophagal altar that didn't fit the architecture of the building, which was sort of New England colonial, and this was stone or sculpted concrete. And I had sort of said, I thought this would be easy. I said, I think we should have an altar, more in keeping with the building. Oh my gosh, you would have. I mean, the knives just came out. I'd been rector there like 2 years. Oops, so I immediately backed off. Now it turns out our architect came up with a very ingenious and beautiful, wonderful renovation, slight addition plan for the sanctuary, which meant turning everything 90 degrees and moving everything. I wish I could show you all that in 30 seconds, but it was really creative. And it was we took the time to have cottage meetings and talk about it. And we came within a hair's breadth of pulling the trigger on that, but we felt like we had about 80% of the congregation enthused and about 20% like this, and we thought this needs to be even a higher threshold. After that, I said, let me return to this question of the altar. What do you think happened? They thought it was the best idea in the world. I mean, do anything. Just don't switch the sanctuary around. If you don't reorient it, you could have a stuffed turkey there. And we actually made that change. But what it taught me is the degree of process and conversation that's necessary for changes that are close to the heart. And you don't find anything in the canons or the bylaws of that parish about altars. Okay? So be attentive to those things. That's a really important thing that you bring up. Okay. So what do the canons of the Episcopal Church say about being a warden? And I tell you on the front end, it says very, very little. Some of you may have already discovered this, but it's important to say what it does say. The first place it shows up is, and most of these citations are in Title I, which is the administrative section of our canons. It says in every parish, and those of you who are in missions, just translate most of this to the mission environment, okay? In every parish, this is about how you find yourself being this. The number and mode of selection and term of office of wardens and members of the vestry with qualification voters shall be such as, again, state, if you're incorporated, and diocesan law or canons may permit and require, and the wardens and members of the vestry selected under such law shall hold office until their successors are selected and have been qualified, which means you're stuck until somebody takes your place. Okay, it's important to know. That's the first thing the canon said. The second is this. Except as provided by the law of the state and the diocese, the vestry shall be agents and legal representatives of the parish in matters concerning its corporate property and its relations to the parish and its clergy. What does that sound like, what we just looked at earlier? The definition? And again, it doesn't distinguish the wardens as the legal representatives. The vestry as a whole is. This is probably a good point to talk about decision-making at the vestry level and the nature of a corporate board. I'm assuming a lot of you all have been members of civic boards and various sundry things. No vestry member holds authority by themselves. And in almost, a couple of rare instances, same with wardens. The wardens don't have a power and authority separate from the whole. Those of you who are parts of parishes, anybody want to give me the legal name of your parish? The legal name of your parish. Yeah.
You want the corporation?
Yeah, your corporate name. Anybody got it? I bet it didn't. I bet it didn't. I bet if you look at your bylaws, especially if they're old, it's going to be offensive to women in the room, because it'll probably be something like the rector, vestrymen, and wardens, rector, wardens, and vestrymen of Saints Peter and Paul Episcopal Church in El Centro, or St. Bartholomew's is probably new enough. St. Barnabas is probably new enough. It would be the rector, wardens, and vestry. We eliminate the word men. St. Paul in the Desert is probably men. Sometimes people have made those changes. Peggy, you're looking at yours, aren't you? What does it say?
We are also parish.
It's all it says. Okay. Interesting. That's an anomaly. I actually like it when the legal name is the rector, wardens, and vestry.
I'm sorry, you're correct.
Okay.
Second page.
Okay. Okay. And the reason I like it is it describes the reality of authority. Is in concert, you all are the legislation of the parish, not in singularity. And what does that suggest about when we make decisions? We make it as a unit. And what would be the best thing to have happen if you have an 8-3 vote, say, and you're one of those 3 that voted against? I know, let's get something really hard. Giving the rector a raise. What should you not do if you're one of those 3? That was interesting. What should you not do if you're one of those 3?
Oppose it.
Tom?
Well, you shouldn't go around saying that you
Right,
tried to
right.
stop it.
Put it in black and white. Tom, what do you mean giving the vicar a raise?
Well,
and you voted against it. Yeah, what would be really bad is, well, I didn't vote for it, as opposed to saying words like that. That's the decision of the vestry, and I stand by it. Or if you don't stand by it, what do? You resign. Yeah, you keep your mouth shut. But one can keep their mouth shut. I mean, it's like this. I understand you gave the vestry gave the rector a raise. Yeah, I know. That was our decision. So you want to be careful of that. So just be aware that you don't exercise your authority as individuals. Now, unless it conflicts with the law, as foresaid, the rector or other such members of the vestry designated by the rector shall preside in all meetings of the vestry. Now, you may wonder why I put this in, because it doesn't have the word warden there. But sometimes people ask the question, well, why doesn't the senior warden chair a vestry meeting? The answer is it contravenes the canons of the Episcopal Church. Now, I will say this, and I do it in a guarded way because I really cannot encourage you to disregard the canons of the church. And as wardens, you may not do that, and you shall not on your own alter this practice. But were a rector to say, Judy, you're my senior warden, I'm going to ask that you facilitate this meeting. I'm actually chairing the meeting. I'm the chair of the vestry, but would you facilitate the meeting? That will help me to be a better pastor. And I draw a distinction between chairing and facilitating. Now, that's a distinction perhaps without a difference, but you're not giving up the chair. And at any moment, the rector can say, Judy, thank you, but I'm going to step into my formal role here. But there's some value, and I would encourage you all to have those conversations with your rectors or vicars to think about what is the role of the senior warden and how does that fit in and support the role of the rector. Okay, so that's something for you to ponder. And if they say don't want to have anything of it, say, okay. Please don't say, well, Jim Mathis said you should. Okay, all right. Any person accepting, this is we're still in Title I. This is, again, does not say warden, but I put this in here because I've been doing this for 9 years and because this is a very, very important canon. This is the fiduciary clause for lay leadership in the church. Any person accepting office in this church shall well and faithfully perform the duties of that office, in accordance with the Constitution and canons of the church and the diocese in which the office is being exercised. As you all know, many years ago we had some property disputes in the Episcopal Church in this diocese. It would not surprise you to find that from time to time in talking to vestry members who were involved in alienating property from the church, that I would remind them of this canon. And guess what they said to me? What canon? They didn't know it exists. You consider yourself given notice. And I would actually encourage you all to put this in front of people when you're recruiting them to be members of the vestry. As members of the vestry, as wardens, you all have a duty of a trustee, right? You're trustees of the parish and have a trust relationship with the Episcopal Church at large. And as such, you need to exercise the care of the duties of caring for the institution, the duties of obedience to the canons and to state and federal laws, and the duties of loyalty to the Episcopal Church and to the parish in particular. Okay, so just bear that in mind. So that is almost. We've got a couple other things here. This one, I'm not going to read it out. Y'all can read it as easily as I can. Kind of go, who is it that brought the relationship with the bishop? Okay, Tom. This, again, it specifies parishes. It fits just as well for missions. When the bishop comes, actually, wardens and vestries have a responsibility. Every visitation shall be the duty of the rector and priest in charge and the wardens and vestry and other officers to exhibit to the bishop the parish register and to give information as to the state of the congregation, spiritual and temporal, in such categories as the bishop shall have previously requested in writing. How many of you all have seen my request in writing? You did a very nice job, Francis. Thank you. I was just with Health Central. You all may have done a good job too. I haven't been there so frequently. Raise your hands again. Hi. Those of you. Okay. Most of you are not. Which means one of the things you can feel free to do is to go and sit down with your rector and say, "Hey, tell me more about the bishop's customary for visitation." Where this is all laid out. It's also on our website. Okay, so you can easily access bishop's customary on the website. And hold that. Okay, you see, that lays out what I ask you all to provide actually in advance of the visitation, so I'm not sitting there poring over financials and during the visitation, that scarce and precious time. And that's really helpful for us just to stay connected and be aware of how you're doing and to be responsive and sometimes proactive if things are kind of going off the rail. So that's where that comes from, okay? And then these last two. This goes to something we don't necessarily want to talk about. It didn't come up, but I think I'm going to, well, maybe it did. When there's conflict. If there's, and I want you all to notice in these last two, we're going to Title III, a little education about the canons of the Episcopal Church. Title I is administrative details. Title II is worship. We're not going to Title II because that's the purview of the rector or priest in charge. Title III is the ministry of the church, which is the laity. Lay leadership have a crucial role. That's why you're involved in the visitation. And then if there's conflict, if any member of the clergy or priest in charge, or result of impairment or other cause, shall neglect to perform services of the congregation, or refuse without good cause to consent to other qualified members of the clergy to perform such duties, the wardens, vestry, and trustees, it's a little bit redundant, of the congregation shall get in touch with the ecclesiastical authority, that'd be me, and look for such remediation as we can determine. And then we're over here, transitions. This is the authority place. When a parish is without a rector, the wardens or other officers shall promptly let me know, the bishop know what's going on. And if after 30 days you haven't made initial arrangements, it's my duty then to step in and see to that. So far, so good. Questions about what you see up there? Yeah, Helen.
Churches who tried to take the property out of the diocese not succeed because of this title, or were they not aware of the title?
They did not succeed because there's another canon. I should refer. It actually has an interesting name. It's called the Dennis Canon. It's named after a chancellor of the Episcopal Church who urged its adoption back in the 1970s, which defines what was implicit in canon law all the way back to English canon law, which is that parishes hold property in trust for the Episcopal Church. Therefore, if St. John's ceased to exist, the parish corporation couldn't say, we're going to divide this up and each of us take a share. Or, we really like the work of Eisenhower Hospital, we're going to give it to Eisenhower. No, at that point it reverts to the Episcopal Church as a whole. And somewhere you can't vote yourself off the island and alienate that property held in trust. And because that's been explicit it's been implicit in the canons since the Episcopal Church existed, and even going back to English common law, and yet was memorialized in a specific canon in the 1970s, they were unable to say. That was they have in their parish bylaws all subordinated their corporate structure to the canons of the Episcopal Church. So. How do I do attorneys in the room? So okay, just checking, So I'm not one, but I hang out with some, so that helps. Okay, so far so good on that. Okay, it's going to get a little less dry here in a minute, but let me belabor the Episcopal Church Diocese of San Diego's canons. It does get a little bit more specific here, as you will immediately see. This speaks of organizing a mission, and I think this is interesting. The trigger on it being a mission is what? That the bishop has appointed a senior warden and a junior warden of a mission. Now you're a mission. That's the triggering event. and then it goes on from there. The bishop appoints the senior warden, and initially and afterwards continues that appointment, or can allow the mission to do it. And I need to give you the rest of this. Excuse me. It gives you a bit more detail on the specifics. The junior warden, it says, shall be elected in accordance to Title II, Canon 6, which I'll give you a quick preview as we jump over that way. That's just saying you do it like parishes do it. And let's talk about what you all experience. Senior warden is chosen by the rector or the bishop in the case of a mission. And the junior warden in a parish is chosen by vestry. And therefore, if you're in a mission, who should choose the junior warden? Right. Vestry or bishops' committees, it's sometimes called. Canon 6 lays all that out. It also has the qualified electors and so on and so forth. It also has this interesting distinction, which I want to say something about. You may hear rector's warden, people's warden. Rector chooses senior warden. People choose junior warden. Is there any danger involved in that?
Congregation may think that they get a direct vote.
Well, congregation gets to vote for the vestry.
Right.
Yeah, they have that direct franchise. But yeah.
Maybe the congregation would feel as they should be voting in the people.
Maybe. But just think about the dynamics within a vestry. It could become adversarial, right? Yeah. I'm here to speak for the rector. Well, I'm here to speak for the people. It can create that tension. One of the things I pondered, this is not a unique thing to San Diego, but it's not the only way the Episcopal Church does it. And one of the things I want to have a bigger conversation, I would welcome your input if we have time today, is it better just to not have that distinction? Maybe even to consider, as some dioceses allow, for wardens to be elected at the parish annual meeting as wardens. Okay, just something to ponder and put into the air. Use you all as a focus group. Because you have this inherent sort of potential tension. It also, as you'll see here, our canons stipulate where do you populate wardens from? What's the catchment basin from which wardens are selected? The vestry. So you have, in most congregations, 9 or so, 7 in some. We have a few with 12 vestries. You have a relatively limited group of people to choose your wardens from. That might, from time to time, feel constraining. So it's just something, again, to think about. And I'm going to talk a little bit about models for warden leadership in just a couple of minutes. And I'm going to I would suggest that this people's warden, rector's warden, might be a little bit of a limiting factor. So, okay. It's a little bit more, oops, I'm sorry, how do I back up? Last viewed, previous. Okay. This is an important one. In a case a congregation is without a rector, transition, the vicar or priest in charge, the senior warden, or in the absence of the senior warden, the junior warden shall preside at vestry and parish meetings. No vestry or parish meeting shall meet without that presence. Okay? So this is perhaps the most direct authority given first to who? Senior wardens. Secondly, to junior wardens. In my judgment, I infer quite a bit from this. That as your bishop, I look particularly to senior wardens during times of interims as the initial actor on behalf of the parish. That the senior warden should be making provisions for the immediate care of the congregation and have a strong leadership voice in terms of how the calling process works out with the guidance and assistance of the bishop. You can also just infer a whole lot about, what is the relationship between senior and junior warden. You don't call them senior and junior warden for nothing, right? There's a reason for that. And this canon, I think, sort of underscores that. Okay, yes?
Priest in charge is interim considered?
Thank you. There are three canonical distinctions for clergy in charge of congregations. The most common is rector, that's a parish. Vicar is a mission. Who's the rector of the mission? Bishop. Bishop is the rector of a mission. There are circumstances in which a bishop working with a vestry or even a mission, bishop's committee or vestry might say, we're in such a situation that it might be best to have some space here and not immediately go into a calling process. Why don't we appoint a priest in charge, use that nomenclature, until such time as we're ready to proceed along the more traditional path. Occasionally we'll say, we're going to have a really quick calling process here. You all have been through an awful lot of whatever. Let's think about a very truncated calling process, and we will choose in the next 6 months a priest in charge who will serve you for the next 3 years. And at the end of the second year, you all feel comfortable, and this person feels comfortable with you. You may elect that person as rector. That's another way. I call that the rent with the option to buy. Okay, okay. So that that's where that language. The other thing you hear is interim rector. Somebody's an interim rector, and it's really important for all wardens to hear this and believe it and support our office in this. When we determine somebody is an interim rector, they have all the authority of rector except for one thing. That's tenure. And the assumption is that they do their job and they do what? Leave. Yeah, and that's really important. And I cannot tell you how many times I've gotten we love our interim rector, but we understand you can't stay. Can you please make an exception? And the answer is always no, because they can't do their work as an interim if they're beginning to position themselves for the job. And by the way, that was the deal that we all made. So let's stay clear about that. Okay, and that's where I need you all not to blink. Because any of us blink, there we get in trouble. Okay. Yes.
In the case of the interim rector with the Wardens Act, and for the interim rector,
the interim rector should have the same prerogatives as the rector. But again, I think you could do something just analogous of what I was saying. In all cases, I really would encourage you all to have good boundary conversations. What are the good boundaries here? What are the parameters we're going to work at? Let's be really clear about it up front, on top of the table. Something very practical. How many of you who are wardens have a monthly meeting with your rector, vicar, or priest in charge, one-on-one? How many of you all have every other week meetings? How many of you all have weekly meetings? I'm going to encourage it always to be weekly. Okay, that might sound a lot, but the way life works, you'll miss a few weeks here and there. I'll come back to this, but about the characteristic of those meetings. But just to in those meetings, you can do this boundary work. You can set some standards. So let me just summarize a couple things on what the canons say. The canons will talk about give us very few distinctive duties for wardens, but they do underscore a clear fiscal role, fiduciary role. That you're a member of the vestry, therefore you don't act you act in concert. You are a corporate officer, and as such you can on behalf of the vestry discharge certain functions, sign legal documents and such. And you have that particular role in transition that I was alluding to, or in conflict. and the canons are somewhat helpful on this. We had that canon about not discharging your duties. There is another canon about conflict resolution in a congregation that I'll just talk in broad brushstrokes about. It's one of those things we hope we never have to do. But let's say there's conflict between, let's say things aren't working well in the parish with the rector or vicar. What do? Frequently, this is where I get a phone call saying we're having these problems. And my joke is people confuse me with an ATM machine or the complaint department, and I'm neither, but there is a way, if you have a serious complaint, you can come to the bishop. Again, it follows the same thing of not working as individuals. You as an individual vestry member, you can come to me and tell me your complaints, and I'll try and be as good a priest as I can be for you, but I'm not going to act on it. If the rector comes to me, or the vicar, and says, Bishop, I need you to come in and be the bishop in a parish conflict, that puts me into a certain role as the mediator, and I will do that. If the vestry meets and votes to call me in as the mediating presence, I will do that. Now, if the conflict is described as a conflict between the parish and, let me use the word rector, but it could be vicar, I'm going to define that as really a conflict between the rector and the vestry. Okay, that's how our church views these things. And so I'm going to try and mediate between those two bodies, not between this group out there that's amorphous. But there's actually always conflict between certain people in the parish and every priest I've ever known. You can please some of the people some of the time, not all the people all the time. So that's where you use the vestry as the appropriate representative body. Bishops in that situation may remove a settled rector from a cure. If, in the judgment of the bishop, after trying to mediate that is the best thing. A bishop in that situation may require that the vestry resign and repopulate the vestry. That is also a permissible remediation. Anybody want to guess what the third one is? A pox on all your houses. You all must step aside. We're going to start over. And I have never in 9 years used that canonical provision because the adults show up in the room and we work out a way forward. And usually it's not even, in my case, I've never had that canon formally invoked. So I'm able to sit down and say, let's just be reasonable, work the problem. And the result may be that a clergy person leaves. That may be the best result. But it gets done in such a way that it's organic and at a different pace. So, but try to do that in such a way that it's very transparent. My numbering on this is off. Okay, so I have some recommendations. This is getting back to something I said earlier. Any of you all ever served as officers of a non-profit corporation? Okay, a lot of you all have. Any of you ever served as executive directors or employees of a non-profit? A few of you have. Okay. There's a lot to be learned from that environment that the church could well learn. And in particular, I would define the role between a board and a chief operating officer. Analogy between rector/vicar and the vestry. If, in particular, going back to what I suggested about weekly meetings with senior wardens, it could be senior wardens and junior wardens. That may be the way you want to do it. I've done it as rector both ways. And it really depends sometimes on life. By the way, my best 15 minutes are my next 15 minutes. Don't do this until we end. This is your evaluations. But to have that regular meeting where you are doing a variety of things. One is you're checking in on the priest in charge. What are the issues? that you're working on? How can we help you? You're being proactive. I always think of Bud Walters, who was my first and best senior warden in Northfield. And Bud would come in with his list on his notepad, and he had 1, line 2, line, and he'd say things like, I think you need to go see Jim Stiven. He's somebody you really need to visit with. His wife died last year, and why don't you put him on your calendar? And folks are beginning to talk about the organist and the hymn selection. Perhaps you and Merle ought to have a conversation about that. And I suppose I could have been like, I'm the pastor of this congregation. I'll go see whoever I think I should go see. But it was a gift, particularly as a new person. And Jim, I'm seriously thinking about you and Peggy, people who have new rectors either coming in or just arriving. They know their priestcraft perhaps quite well, but they don't know you. And you can be a window into the congregation and the priorities and the potholes, and be a little directive of what does it hurt, and you can also have that be half the meeting. The second half of the meeting is, what do you need me to do? I'm your warden. What tasks would you like me to do? And if they're consistently saying nothing in return, that might be a conversation to have. I'm going to show up for work, and I'd really like to be in conversation with you about what that work is. It creates the regular moment that's sacred, that you can count on having their undivided attention and them yours. If you have multiple staff, you can encourage the rectors to behave likewise with their people who are their reports, by the way. And that's just a good mechanism of communication that we can borrow. It's also the point at which you build the vestry agenda. If some of you have been on vestries and you think, why are we here, where are we going, and what's up now? It could be because there's not intentionality in building an agenda well in advance. The wardens can each junior warden, senior warden can have a portfolio with different committees that funnel into the vestry, and you can check in with them before you meet with the rector and work on that agenda. As you're meeting weekly, you can do it 2 weeks before. The agenda's out a week in advance. People may easily add things. It just creates a nice uniform flow of work. So think about your nonprofit experience. Be partners with your rector or vicar. Be somebody who can speak the truth in love. It seems like you're not spending as much time as you were earlier on your sermon preparation. I mean, seriously, if nobody else is going to tell these guys that, okay? So, you are the chief lay leaders, okay? And I sometimes say, please act like it. Be aware of what you put on Facebook. I'm serious, folks. The church has not ordained you, but the church has designated you as a leader. And really encourage you to take that very seriously. Role in the organizational structure of the vestry congregation, as well as alluding to, you may want to create particular liaison connective tissue between each. There are 2 of you, 2 wardens. If you have 6 major committees, that's 3 each. That doesn't mean you attend every meeting, but you check in regularly with the people who are convening them to create some. And then, what do you do senior warden versus junior warden? Again, the church has typically said senior wardens, look after the clergy and all that, and junior wardens look after the property. That can severely constrict who you call to be junior warden. If the guy has to know how, or gal needs to know how to start the furnace when it's not working, that may not be a person who has the charism of leadership. And so I would encourage you not to get into that box, but to think about who are the 2 people in the vestry that are the natural leaders that can work in harmony with the clergy person to move us forward this year. Okay? I'm going to move fast through a couple other things, and I want to go to your questions. I would ask you all to be planners. This might be not be a remarkable statement, but one of the things we do not do a good job of teaching in seminary is long-range planning. Okay? Many of you have done those functions either in your business life or in other civic life, make sure that mantle, that institutional piece does not fall through the cracks. Claim it as part of the work of a senior warden. That includes budget planning, which does not start in November, friends. It needs to start in February. Seriously, begin thinking, and if you haven't started thinking about the budget for 2015 and dream about what 2015 is going to look at, do it now. Why? Because you want to take that long view. You want the short term and the long term to continue. And because stewardship is a major, major, major part of the life of the church. And again, because this might sound crazy to you, because we don't train our clergy well to be fiscal leaders, to be thinking about the resources of our parish. You may be saying, our rector's doing a great job. Blessings upon you. That's not been the norm. I encourage you as wardens, and this could be a great portfolio for the junior warden, particularly as our canons articulate. People's warden will connect with the people, for all goodness sake, on their giving. Okay, and I'm going to say just a quick word about giving. Know the giving of your congregation. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, I don't want the junior warden or senior warden to know what I give. I would really encourage you all to as wardens, to know the giving patterns of your congregation. Here's a little, and attorneys in the room, back me up on this. California corporate law means that as a director of that corporation, you are entitled to any information about the corporation. Any information. Contracts, financial records, the files of the files of the corporation, which, as I read that, does include donor information. So I'm just telling you that you are entitled to it. Whether you think it's right or not, you're entitled to it. So I think somebody needs to be looking at that. And by the way, here's where it can become an incredibly important conversation. Tom is a generous giver to St. Paul. I mean, I don't know that, but I trust it. He gives, and suddenly Pete's the senior warden, and he's been, every month looking at what's going on, pledges and how they're being paid. He knows Tom's not making his regular payment. He mentions it to the rector. The rector goes and sees Thomas. Thomas, I want to check in with you. How you doing? And Tom says, I got laid off 6 months ago. I am hanging by a thread. What just happened? You use data readily available to be a good pastor. And you took care of somebody. And rather than Tom feeling like nobody even noticed that he was struggling, he didn't know how. You don't have to say, well, we've been checking on your your payments to your pledge. Somebody noticed something about him and just reached out to him. And over time, the reputation of this congregation is, we pay attention to our people. And he doesn't make good on that pledge because he can't. But then he gets another job, and because he's a good guy, he makes even a better job, and he feels really generous to his congregation that loved him, and everybody's better off. And so just to use what you have in front of you. So the stewardship thing, it does fit into the long-range plan. It is a part of your fiduciary role. And it recognizes that the church competes with these other philanthropic entities. And there's a whole... Our stewardship team over there is talking about that today. Some of you all may have been in some of those. You all need to be thinking about how you stack up against the Red Cross, and against Heifer, and against the universities and colleges. I think it's your responsibility, particularly senior wardens, to make sure we have excellent stewardship. Oops. The last slide, I won't worry about going back. And to think of this as an annual, every member can think of an annual capital, and even thinking about legacy gifts. We do a really good job in the church at focusing on annual. That we get totally focused on every member canvas. Show of hands. Which parishes represented here have done capital campaigns in the last 5 years? Okay, one. last 10 years. Okay, a little better. Every 5 to 7 years, I think every parish should be looking at a capital effort of some sort, looking at capital needs. We open up one door of giving, annual gift. Well, sometimes we open up others. We'll do spontaneous giving. There's a tsunami. Let's all give. That's spontaneous giving. We also are not particularly attentive to legacy giving, remembering the church in your will, which, by the way, institutionally has been the most transformational kind of giving that we've ever had. We had, a few weeks ago, a letter come in the mail to the diocese. A woman died without heirs, had a provision in her will that the Episcopal Diocese of San Diego would be her beneficiary, and what she wanted was it to be an endowment to assist in paying the clergy pensions of diocesan clergy staff. It's $1.5 million. Guess how many gifts I've gotten bigger than that since I've been bishop 9 years? Tom gets the golden prize, 0. I've never met the woman, blessed be she. It's where we make huge impacts as our last act. And it's worth inviting yourselves and others to do that on behalf of your congregation. It can be enormously beneficial, and it will be to our diocese. So I would encourage you all to take a role in that. Okay, a little word about mutual ministry review. And what I'm not going to do here is tell you how to do a mutual ministry review. I'm going to encourage you to do this. And many folks here have letters of agreement with your rector, vicar, priest in charge that say every year you will do a mutual ministry review. It should be annual. And what a mutual ministry review is it is all three things. It's mutual, it's the vestry, and the priest in charge, be it that rector, vicar, or priest in charge, having a review of their work. It is a ministry review. It's I wish you wouldn't wear dresses like that. Well, that might be a good criticism to give, but this is not the venue in which you do it, and I probably wouldn't go there anyway. It is a review, and it's a review based on goals previously set. So the first, that and is very important. It is a review of the ministry of all. You're looking at it's like you get a little altitude and look at the congregation how it's firing. And it does take a specific look at the work of the clergy. This is the place that you and how many of you all participated in my mutual ministry review? So you all should have gotten questionnaires from the diocese. Okay. The kinds of things that you see on that are not atypical. How's the bishop's preaching? These sorts of things. That's okay. That's specific to me because that fits into the ministry of the whole congregation. And what I would tell you today is there are different ways of doing it. Our office can provide you models and consultants. And I would always use an outside consultant. Don't say, we're going to do a mutual ministry review, and James, you're senior warden, why don't you conduct that? Why don't you run the mutual ministry review? Because what do you lose there? Objectivity, correct. And process suffers. I'm sorry. The models I would suggest just are out there is doing surveys. Survey Monkey, which I think is an incredibly weird name, but it has revolutionized how we do these sorts of things. It makes it cost almost nothing to survey a large group of people. You can also do small group discussions or a combination of both. And there are other models beyond. Everything is always based on clearly articulated goals made a year in advance. You're not just starting from whole cloth. You do the mutual ministry reviews based on goals that you decided a year before. So if you just elect a rector next week, say, and you're ready to go, you sit down with that person about 8 weeks in and say, this is your first year. We'd like to work with you in articulating our mutual ministry review goals. Then you talk about them as a vestry. You publish them to the parish. And then a year later, you come back and hit those. Okay? Questions at this point? Time is not our friend. And that clock, I got 5 more minutes, right? I got 5 more minutes? Okay. Well, I'm taking it. So here's some quick 4 benefits for this thing, and I'm going to go to our sheet over here and see how we did. It assists you with planning, okay, first of all. Second of all, you learn what folks are thinking. Really learn what folks are thinking. You become better. Hello. And I think this is really important. It's a pressure release valve. You ask people's opinions. You ought to listen to them, first of all, but you ask their opinions, they get to say it, and you can sort out the sort of stuff that really needs to be dealt with and the stuff that, well, that just needed to be said. It just gets things sorted out a little bit. So, how do we do? Do you feel like you know your duties more? You want to spend a little bit more time on that? Questions about duties. There's no magic duty sheet. It's part of the problem. But I would say, leave here, go sit with your rector, priest, and say, let's talk about my duties as it relates to this parish. And I would like to come out of this with 3 or 4 things that are my clear duties. Is that fair enough? Okay. Somebody said engaging the congregation. I don't think I've specifically touched on that. So let me just throw out something. Are you, as senior, junior warden, spending any face time with the congregation? You are? Okay, some of you are. I would create those regular communication moments where once a month, maybe it's a junior warden followed by the senior warden every other month or something like that. I'm your senior warden. I want to share with you some things we're working on. I'm going to be at coffee hour. If you'd all like to visit with me, love to hear from you. That sort of thing. If you're in a calling process, doing a capital campaign, these various and sundry things, there may be episodic things that your budget process that will lend itself to that. But to use the Sunday morning precious time, they don't always have to hear from the priest. In fact, they probably don't want to always hear from the priest. You might have forums. You might use your newsletter and have the junior warden follow next month senior warden to have that place the voice out there. To have most of y'all have your own website. You have your own domain. I ought to have junior warden at St. Anne's Episcopal Church.org or whatever it is that you pass on, that you have a web address that you check, at least weekly, an email address, and you have that on your website so that you're available. You create that sense of availability and engagement. Clergy evaluating. The MMR is a crucial piece to that. Mentoring can occur as a part or potentially remedying parts that. The other thing I would ask the clergy, and this is, you can blame me when you talk to them, is I want every priest in this diocese to be a part of a colleague group. That's the best and most efficient and effective way to do mentoring, where you're a group in pods of 4 or 5 people meeting monthly for fellowship, for sharing cases, case studies, for just telling what's happening, getting input from your peers. Mutual ministry is year-round in one sense, but it is an episodic event. So if somebody was wanting it to be a year-round conversation, I would turn that more into how you do planning. Was that yours?
Well, it was mine, but I tell you, I also consider that in terms of engaging the congregation, because I know what we've been doing is things that we talked about in mutual ministry review, that they didn't tell you everything you wanted to know. We used it as an opening to have a conversation. And if not that, at least to report back.
Right. Okay. I think I've gotten responding to congregation. I'm going to say a word about this, I'm going to skip it. Sharing leadership with the rector, times of transition, staff relations. I think that the kind of meeting and connection, I think, will really ameliorate any concerns you have and provide the texture of that. Goals and objectives, again, that's a prefatory part of your MMR, and it's part of your planning process. I would use, if you haven't done an MMR in a long time, start it as a long-range planning process. And then planning on doing an MMR in a year based on that. And then we've talked about different ways to think about junior and senior warden. Finally, this thing called a bishop, which we have in the Episcopal Church. The bishop's role is one of oversight and pastoring with the clergy of the diocese and with the lay leaders of the diocese. You all should, as wardens, as members of vestry, while you have your shared authority is shared as a unit, you should never feel as a unit that I should not be available to you, to bring me in for consultations to your vestry. Expectations you get a little bit from my end in terms of the customary. That's an annual touchstone that's very, very important. And I think finally, as individuals, none of you should worry about contacting me for your own care and feeding. Again, you may call me, Pete, you may call me and say, I got to talk to you about my vicar. He's driving me absolutely bonkers. I'm going to take that call. I'm going to listen to Pete, and I'm going to do nothing about it as a bishop regarding the priest. I'm going to be pastor to that person. I might say, sounds like to me you need to have a direct conversation with Joe. You know what I'm saying? But I want to be able to provide you the pastoral care because you're exercising important leadership on behalf of the body. I think we are out of time. Has it been helpful? Okay, all right. Then I always am concerned about my report card. No. Fill out your evaluations, and then y'all can go to your last class. And thank you for the gift of today.